Hi friends, just wanted to give you a little video and a rundown on how we do our homeschooling here in our house. We didn't start homeschooling until COVID happened. However, we had wanted to homeschool for probably a good 2 years before COVID ever happened, and we just didn't feel comfortable deciding to homeschool our own children at that time. However, once COVID happened and the boys were basically schooling at home via the computer, we started to implement some homeschooling of our own and played around with it and found we actually did enjoy it. The boys enjoyed it, and it's been successful. So this is our second year homeschooling. Max and Sam, Sam's in 6th grade and Max is in 8th grade. So basically, a big reason why we like to homeschool and why we chose to homeschool was to give them an interest-based learning environment. Both boys are extremely interest-based learners, as I know a lot of children probably are. If they're not interested and there's no motivation or drive to learn, it's in one ear and out the other. However, we noticed with our boys, they would become robotic with their learning, and we wanted them to learn in a way that was meaningful to them, and so that they would internalize what was important for them to know as they grow up and turn into adults. So that's been a big part of our philosophy, is really introducing an interest-based learning environment. Now, that being said, it's not just fun and games all the time. You do have your core subjects that you have to meet. Math, ELA, science, history, geography, health, practical arts, visual arts, music. There are all those core requirements, but you can very easily incorporate those core subjects into the interests of your child. For example, both boys are super into Minecraft. They're 12 and 13, so it's just, yeah, they are video gamers. They're fanatics about video games. So we do use that as a way to motivate and drive the learning process. That being said, we do try to incorporate as much off-screen learning as possible too, because otherwise they just get way too used to learning on a screen, and we want to incorporate the outside, other experiences, actually writing and not just typing, stuff like that. We also foster creativity, outside of the box thinking, divergent thinking, divergent learning. We want to lose the robotic style of learning that they were used to and just regurgitating answers, and make it more meaningful. Get them to think, get them to come up with a solution that maybe somebody else didn't think of, showing them that they're more than capable to do so. Our homeschool is very relaxed. It didn't start out relaxed. I was very rigid with structure, like down to like the hours. I used to be a TA in a couple of the districts in our area, and I was brought up in public school, so really that kind of rigid structure was ingrained into me and what I was used to, and I was comfortable with it because I knew it, even though every part of me wanted to really take a detour from that style. So when we started out 2 years ago, I was extremely scheduled, and it didn't last very long. No, not one bit, because it didn't work for the boys and it didn't work for me. My teaching style and the boys' learning styles need some structure, but more flexibility. The other thing that I really strive to do with our homeschool is to keep the instruction time small and the playtime bigger. And when I say playtime, I mean, okay, we just learned about something. Let's use it. Let's incorporate it. Let's do something hands-on. For example, earlier in the school year in September, the boys went and took the dogs for a walk, and they found all these wild grapes. I had never in my life picked wild grapes. I didn't know anything about the wild grapes, but they came home. We researched them. We found out the difference between that specific wild grape and the poisonous wild grapes that look exactly like them. We learned the Latin name about them. We picked them, we juiced them, we made them into Jello, tasted really sour. We found out you need a butt ton of sugar to make them taste good. But it was a learning experience, not only for them, but for me. And they got their hands on. They wrote stuff down, they researched, but they learned by doing something. And that is exactly how they learn. And I do too, so I understand. So that in a nutshell is kind of our philosophy, the interest-based, the flexible with some structure, because in life you do need structure. And honestly, both boys and myself really do our best with the small amount of structure and some freedom to enjoy the learning. Creativity, encouraging that creativity and outside of the box thinking, and keeping the instruction time small, hands-on learning bigger. So another important piece of our homeschooling puzzle is really the special considerations that do need to be addressed for our family. Max has autism. He was diagnosed at the age of 2 and went through early intervention and district-based or center-based learning through preschool, went into the district and received special education through the district all the way up through 6th grade before we pulled both boys out to homeschool. He received speech and OT, had social skills classes and things like that. And he really has thrived. I mean, amazing. He went from a child who could not talk until the age of 3, almost 4. And he writes stories now about Minecraft, which we could have never, I don't think we would have ever come to that point without the help of those therapists and those teachers. And I am forever grateful for their help. And so when we transitioned to homeschooling, I'm talking within the district about, well, does he still need to receive these services? And we all kind of came to the conclusion that no, being able to be so one-on-one with him and Sam is more than plenty. That's what he just needs. Somebody to be able to be with him just to show him what needs to be done, provide accommodations as needed, and to teach him at his pace and level. And that's it. He's a sponge and he does amazing. But I have to keep that consideration whenever I'm thinking about different things I want to do, different things I want to teach. It's just something that needs to be considered. It's really based upon his learning style. And Sam learns in his own way, but honestly, him and Max learn in pretty similar ways, which makes things easier for me. And honestly, I also learn just kind of similar to the same way that they do. I'm very kinesthetic. I'm very hands-on. I cannot read something and learn from that. I need to implement it. I need to get my hands on it. I need to make mistakes and then I'll learn. which is a blessing and a curse. I need to make mistakes in order to learn. And that is how they learn as well, by working through things. I myself have ADHD. I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult, and I'm still treated for it. And by being diagnosed, I was able to understand how the boys learn in a different way, because I connected with them and how much I struggled while I was in school in certain ways, but just was never identified because I got good grades. But I understand when they are so zoned out or almost falling asleep by reading something. I get it. You know, my brain acts in the same way. You know, Sam has a very similar brain as I do without having a formal diagnosis. So I can give him a style of education that's more effective for all of us, you know, me as the teacher and him as the student. It works more smoothly. Sam really needs a lot of time to move and groove. We have a yoga ball, we have a swivel chair, we got bands on our chairs. So if he needs to move his feet, if he needs to shift his hips around while moving, because that helps him to learn better, fine, I get it. You know, we have limitations, you know, we're not bouncing like crazy all over the place. You can use it, you can swivel your hips if that's what you need, I get it. Sam is a total kind of like engineer, likes to tinker with things. Legos are a huge thing, so we incorporate the Legos into our homeschool learning. If that helps him to learn a concept by using something he enjoys, perfect, there's that interest base. So along those lines of sensory needs, you know, children with autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, they have these needs in their body that need to be met in order for them to be successful in the learning process. So if a child is being forced to sit still and stare at a board or listen to a book, and all they want to do is just move and fidget, and they can't control their body, they're not learning. They're so focused on the fact that they're trying to hold everything still, and that's hard. So I really made sure when we set up our homeschool to have that sensory equipment available to the boys. If they need it, they know they can use it. They know that there's limits on it, that it is meant to be used appropriately and not crazy. So healthy limits. But still meeting their sensory needs. One of the biggest things with special considerations diagnoses is focusing on the strengths and supporting any of the quote unquote weaknesses. I really hone in on where the boys are strong, and I encourage them to use those strengths, and then their weaknesses I support and encourage and foster and motivate them through a lot of positive reinforcement to help bring those weaknesses up for them. But then they still feel that they know that they have strengths in certain areas, and in other areas, yeah, you know what, maybe ELA isn't their strong point, but they still understand they need to be able to write a paragraph and use nice handwriting to do so. So we want them to have a positive self-esteem about their learning, and understanding that there are areas that they're really strong in and that they are more comfortable in, but we're learning. And when you're learning, there are areas that you're just not as strong in, and that's okay. That's why it's called learning. So in a nutshell, that it really kind of sums up our homeschool philosophy that we've kind of fallen into these past 2 years. and the special considerations that we had to take into consideration when really planning out our homeschool. We don't take this job lightly. We have two teenagers essentially that in a couple years are going to go off to live their own lives, and that's scary and exciting and overwhelming all at the same time. So every day I really try to focus in on this philosophy that Joe and I have created and keep our end goal in mind of creating two people that are able to use their strengths and bring something to this world, then use the gifts that they were given and learn what those gifts may be. So thank you so much for joining me for this first part of our homeschooling video series. I'm going to walk you guys through basically everything related to how we homeschool in our house. We are in no way veteran homeschoolers. We've only been doing this for 2 years. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. You know, maybe my experiences are similar to yours or different than yours, but this is how we do it here. And this is what works for our family. So thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.